Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's cover how to mix reverb. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. How to duck reverb. The chapters in this video are in no order, so use any tips that I'm showing here as you see fit in your mixes. Delay ducking has been popular for some time, but reverb ducking is just as helpful. Now here's how you set it up and what it is. I'll use a send from the signal that I want to reverberate, in this case the vocals, and insert my reverb plugin with a 100% wet dry. Then I'll insert a compressor and sidechain the dry signal, again in this case the vocal, and set the compressor's trigger to this external sidechain. Now this way, whenever the vocal is sung, the reverb is attenuated, but then gradually comes back after the vocal's transient. On the compressor, I'll use a quick attack and release, a little look ahead, and turn off any makeup gain settings. Let's take a listen to how this gives the vocal some space and helps the reverb blend in.
One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time. One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time.
Equalize after reverb. Some reverb plugins come with an EQ section, but if yours doesn't, you can use the same auxiliary track that we created in the last chapter and insert an EQ after your reverb. If I wanted a darker reverb, I could attenuate the highs, or I could do the opposite if I wanted it brighter. Now in this example, I'll reverberate the instrument tracks using subtle settings and amplify reverberation on the fundamental as well as some of the overtones. Let's take a listen to how this gives us more control over our reverb's reflections.
One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time.
If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. How to compress reverb. In chapter 1, we covered how to compress reverb for the purpose of ducking, but let's consider how compression can augment our reflections. I'll insert a compressor after my reverb on the same aux tracks that we've been using and set a quick attack, long release, look ahead, and some makeup gain. Alternatively, we could use a maximizer or an upward compressor after the reverb to pull out all of the quieter details. Let's take a listen.
One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time. One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time.
Should I saturate reverb? Saturating reverb can be difficult since some saturation will sound great, whereas other types may completely ruin the sound of the reflections. So let's try using the Arturia Tube Culture Saturator and run through a few of its algorithms to see if we can find the right sound. Now there's no surefire way to set this up, it's really on a case-by-case basis, so use your ear when adding this saturation. Let's take a listen. Transient expansion on reverb. You don't typically see reverb combined with transient expansion, but it can have a really cool and beneficial effect. I'll use the aux send that we were using in previous chapters, then insert this punctuate expander after it to amplify the incoming transients for a more detailed sound. Now alternatively, I could use de-emphasis on these transients to make the reverb even smoother sounding. Let's take a listen to both, starting with expansion, then attenuation. Creating lo-fi reverb. If you want to create a lo-fi reverb sound, we can combine a few of the chapters that we've discussed so far. So first, let's select an emulation of an older reverb type, like a plate reverb. Then I'll use an EQ to focus the reflections to the mids. Lastly, I'll introduce saturation. Let's take a listen and let me know if this is a sound that you'd use in some of your projects.
One lie out of 10, 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend, some things don't take time. One lie out of 10. 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend. Some things don't take time.
EQ reverb for vocals. Let's go back to equalizing reverb like in chapter 2, but this time tailor it specifically for vocals. With mid-side EQ, I'll amplify the lows and the highs of the reverb on the side image to make it more impressive. On the stereo image, I'll dip around 2 to 5 kHz. Now this dip is going to keep the vocal sounding focused and clear, but do the opposite by amplifying this range if you want a more washed out sound for your vocal. Let's take a listen.
One lie out of 10. 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend. Some things don't take time. One lie out of 10. 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend. Some things don't take time.
If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. Reverb tailored for drums. When reverberating drums, I'd recommend using a different reverb type for each instrument. So maybe a snare plate on the snare and low frequency reverb on the kick. Then using a send or on your drum bus, you could use a collective reverb like room emulation or maybe a generalized drum reverb. Now this way you achieve distinct sounding reverb on each signal, but still get a cohesive sound with the collective room reverb on the bus. Let's take a listen. Layering reverb types in series. Reverb, although typically isolated by using sends, can be layered in a series configuration to create an impressive sound. For example, on my vocal I could use a short time synced option to thicken the vocal, then a mid-frequency reverb to blend it in with the instrumentation. Lastly, I could introduce a long, ethereal sounding reverb. Now if used in this order, each reverb will be processing the already reverberated signal that came before it. So use this technique to create creative sounds or maybe a dense and impressive one like what we've done here. Let's take a listen.
One lie out of 10. 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend. Some things don't take time. One lie out of 10. 2 times won't you be mine? We just can't pretend. Some things don't take time.
Combining impulse response reverb and gear response. Now it's pretty well known that impulse response reverbs are usually more realistic sounding than algorithmic reverbs, but most people don't take full advantage of this. So what I want to do is first use an impulse response of a room or a studio, but then introduce an impulse response of analog equipment. For example, I'll use this impulse response created from a Pultec EQ to shape the timbre of the reverb and create more realistic room emulation and realistic post-processing of the reflections. So let's take a listen and note how IRs can be used for a lot more than just room emulation and reverberation. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.